Imagine hiring a brilliant state-of-the-art assistant.
Okay, sounds great so far.
Right. And for the first week, you let them handle absolutely everything. I mean, you're giving them your schedule, you're having them draft your most sensitive emails, you're even like asking for their input on big strategy decisions.
Sure, you're just handing over the keys.
Exactly. But then, say 6 months later, you barely let them touch anything more complicated than a basic calendar invite.
Oh, wow. That's quite a shift.
Yeah, it's a massive pullback. And if you're like most professionals using generative AI right now, you probably assume you're on this, straight, inevitable path toward automating your entire job.
Because that's what everyone tells us, right?
Exactly. But there's this massive new study. It tracked over 1,000 U.S. professionals across 10 months in 6 different waves. And it reveals that this sudden pullback, this chilling effect, where we actually trust the tool less over time, it isn't just a weird quirk.
It's actually the norm.
Right. It is the exact psychological trajectory of how we're really interacting with AI.
And that completely flies in the face of the prevailing corporate narrative.
It really does.
I mean, the whole assumption in the tech world is built on the idea that familiarity breeds dependence. Like, the more you use these tools and the smarter the models get, well, the more you'll just blindly hand over the reins.
But the data says no.
Right. Tracking those 1,000 professionals over 10 months tells a completely different story.
And that's our mission for today's deep dive. We're going to explore the psychology behind this AI pullback. Like, why are we suddenly getting cold feet just as the technology hits its stride?
It's such a crucial question.
And more importantly, we're going to extract the exact evidence-based playbooks that top organizations are using right now to navigate this incredibly complex landscape.
So we're getting into the real actionable stuff.
Yes, exactly. Okay, let's unpack this. Because when I look at this 10-month trajectory, it completely reminds me of, this ridiculously fancy food processor I bought a few years ago.
Oh, the all-in-one kitchen gadget phase. We've all been there.
Right. I spent way too much money on it. And when I first got it, I was just mesmerized by the marketing. I tried to use it to chop, blend, cook literally absolutely everything.
Just throwing whole vegetables in there?
Oh, I was throwing whole onions in there. I was trying to mix bread dough, making soups. But eventually, after, a few completely mushy, ruined dinners, you realize it's actually terrible at dicing tomatoes.
Because it just pulverizes them, right?
It just turns them into a paste. So you calibrate, you put it back in the drawer for certain tasks, and you only bring it out for making like smoothies or hummus. You don't stop using it, but your reliance on it becomes highly specific and honestly highly skeptical.
That is honestly a fantastic proxy for what the researchers call the calibration process.
Okay, the calibration process. Yeah.
We start in this state of blind habituation. We're totally dazzled by the novelty of the technology, just like your food processor.
Right.
But as you use it in the real world, you hit friction. You move toward a state of realistic, calibrated trust. You're actively figuring out where the machine excels and where it fundamentally falls flat.
So to understand why we're putting that AI kitchen gadget back in the drawer for certain things, we have to look at the 2 distinct ways this study says we interact with these tools.
Right, the 2 behaviors.
Yeah. The research breaks our behavior down into delegation and disclosure.
And this distinction is where the psychology gets really interesting. Because right now, about 15 to 20% of U.S. workers use AI chatbots regularly.
Which is a pretty big chunk.
It is, and it's highly concentrated among, younger professionals in tech, marketing, and consulting. But when they interact, they're doing 2 totally different things.
Break that down for us.
So delegation is purely functional. It's about transferring the responsibility for a task.
Like letting the AI draft a standard weekly update.
Exactly, or having it summarize a 50-page PDF. You're just offloading manual, repetitive labor.
Okay, so that's delegation. What about disclosure?
Disclosure, though, is relational. It's about the actual information you're feeding into the system to get that result.
Oh, okay.
Like, are you pasting in proprietary financial data? Are you sharing personal anecdotes, behavioral patterns, or letting the model infer deep insights about your personal communication style?
Wow. Okay. So here's what the data actually found about those 2 behaviors over that 10-month period. In purely professional writing contexts like drafting a generic business memo delegation stays pretty stable.
Because it's just functional.
Right. But in personal contexts, like having the AI write something meaningful or trying to brainstorm through a complex personal problem, both delegation and disclosure drop sharply the more you use it.
They plummet.
Yeah, they plummet. But here's where it gets really interesting. And I actually want to push back on this a little bit.
Okay, let's hear it.
Because these AI models are constantly getting updated. They're becoming more conversational, more nuanced, and frankly, more human-sounding every single day.
That's true. They're incredibly sophisticated now.
Yeah. So shouldn't a smarter, more capable AI make us feel more comfortable opening up to it? Why are we trusting it less?
You would think so, right? But the increasing sophistication of the AI is actually the exact trigger for the pullback.
Wait, really? How does that work?
Let's look at personal writing. Authentic writing holds immense psychological value for us. It's how we express our identity,
I
right?
think that's our voice.
Exactly. So when you use an AI to write something deeply personal, maybe it's a self-evaluation for work or a really sensitive message to a colleague, and the machine does a surprisingly brilliant job, it actually creates intense cognitive dissonance.
Oh, wow. Because it's almost too good.
Yes. You read this perfectly empathetic, beautifully structured paragraph, and you realize you didn't write a single word of it.
So the fact that it's so good at its job actually makes you feel a loss of autonomy, like you feel like a fraud.
You feel a diminished sense of ownership over your own thoughts. I mean, the functional benefit is incredibly high. You save 20 minutes. But the relational cost, the cost to your sense of self is just too heavy.
So you pull back because you want your voice back.
Exactly. You recalibrate.
Okay, that makes total sense for the delegation drop in personal tasks. But what about disclosure? Why do we stop sharing information with it?
Well, it's because as these systems become better at mimicking empathy and holding natural conversations, users suddenly wake up to just how much they're giving away.
Like, they suddenly realize the stakes.
Right. Early in the adoption curve, people treat conversational chatbots almost like a therapist.
Yeah, you hear about people telling it all their problems.
Exactly. They disclose deeply personal information about workplace conflicts, health matters, private anxieties. But as the AI responds with increasing nuance, the illusion kind of breaks.
Oh, I get it. The user suddenly realizes they aren't talking to a private diary.
Right, they're talking to a massive corporate server.
Wow. It's almost like realizing that the incredibly polite, empathetic stranger you've been pouring your heart out to on an airplane is like secretly wearing a wire and taking detailed notes on your psychology.
That is exactly what it feels like.
Right.
That realization of relational vulnerability hits really hard.
I can imagine.
Users suddenly ask themselves, wait, who's keeping this data? Is it training the next model? Could my employer see this?
Right. The privacy panic sets in.
And that sudden spike in privacy awareness leads to a rapid downward calibration of trust. The willingness to disclose completely plummets.
But this brings up a massive glaring contradiction to me.
Which is?
If we, as users, are naturally becoming more skeptical, if we're pulling back and guarding our personal data, why is generative AI still completely taking over the corporate world?
Oh, that's the big question.
Right. Why are companies pouring literally hundreds of billions of dollars into this if the users themselves are actively recalibrating their trust downward?
Because the short-term functional gains in the workplace are simply too staggering for any CEO to ignore.
Just too good to pass up.
Exactly. We are looking at unprecedented leaps in human productivity here. The data in this study cites experimental evidence with professional management consultants.
Oh.
When they integrated AI assistants into their daily workflows, their productivity didn't just inch up a little bit. It increased by approximately 40%.
Wait, 40%.
40%.
That isn't just a small efficiency bump. That's a single employee suddenly doing the work of almost 1.5 people.
And it isn't even just raw speed. Their quality ratings on complex tasks went up by roughly 18%.
So they're faster and better.
Much better. But you know what the most disruptive part of this data is?
What?
It's who benefited the most. These massive gains were most pronounced for the initially lower performing workers.
Oh, wow. So it's acting as a great equalizer.
Completely.
The people who are struggling to construct a compelling argument or format a report suddenly have this baseline of excellence. That has to completely upend the traditional office hierarchy.
It absolutely does upend it. The performance gap between top-tier and bottom-tier workers shrinks dramatically, and the numbers remain staggering across totally different fields, too.
Like what else?
Well, customer service representatives are resolving complex issues 13 to 14% faster. Software engineers are finishing coding tasks 30 to 50% faster.
50% faster? That's insane.
Right. And one major consulting firm reported saving $500 million annually.
$500 million.
Yes. $500 million saved just through AI-assisted document generation, and initial research.
Okay, I completely see why the corporate world is ignoring the psychological pullback, 500 million reasons why.
Exactly.
But the research also highlights a massive looming peril here. We're looking at this brutal tension between rapid, short-term efficiency and long-term skill survival.
This is what we call the double-edged sword of workplace productivity. Because
Mhm.
educational researchers are already raising alarms. They're seeing that students who rely heavily on AI to write essays are actively losing critical thinking skills.
Because they aren't doing the mental heavy lifting.
Exactly. They're losing argument construction and basic analytical capabilities. And in the workplace, it's the same thing. When you constantly delegate cognitively demanding tasks to an AI, you are literally starving your brain of the friction it needs to develop expertise.
You're threatening your own professional identity.
Yes, you are.
You know, looking at this tension between efficiency and skill rot, it brings up a historical parallel for me.
Oh, yeah. What's that?
Is this exactly like how we all essentially lost our spatial awareness because we blindly followed the GPS on our phones? Like, we get there faster, but we have no idea where we actually are.
The GPS analogy is the perfect way to understand this.
Really?
Yes, because when you just follow a GPS, you never build a mental map of the city.
Right, you just turn left when it says turn left.
Exactly. And in the professional world, this manifests as a psychological trap called automation bias.
Automation bias.
Right. It's the human tendency to favor the machine's recommendation even when your own personal judgment or, glaring contradictory evidence suggests the machine is wrong.
Ah. Because it's presented so confidently and it saved us so much time in the past, we just assume the machine always knows better.
Exactly. And when we over-delegate those complex cognitive tasks, we risk losing what researchers call our tacit knowledge.
A tacit knowledge.
Right.
Like the unspoken stuff.
Yeah. Tacit knowledge is that deep, intuitive, hard-earned understanding of your job that you can't easily write down in an instruction manual.
Oh, I know what you mean.
It's the gut-feeling expert judgment you rely on when the AI inevitably hallucinates, makes a critical mistake, or encounters a completely novel situation it just hasn't been trained on.
Right, because if you've outsourced all the heavy lifting to the AI for 3 years, you simply won't have the cognitive muscles left to catch the subtle error or solve the new problem.
You've let the muscle atrophy.
Wow. We're trading our internal mental GPS for a $500 million efficiency gain. That is a terrifying trade-off.
It's a systemic risk to the entire knowledge economy.
Which brings us to the most practical part of this deep dive.
Let's get into it.
Since we know the financial gains are undeniable, but the risks of destroying our critical thinking are equally real, how are smart organizations actually balancing this?
They have to get creative.
Let's move from the psychological theory to the actual, real-world corporate playbooks.
Mm-hmm.
How are the giants taming this tech?
Well, the most forward-thinking corporations aren't just buying licenses, handing them to employees, and hoping for the best.
Right.
They've realized they have to actively engineer environments that solve the exact psychological tensions we just talked about.
Okay, let's start with solving that problem of automation bias and blind trust. Because what Microsoft is doing here absolutely fascinated me.
The failure showcases.
Yes, they implemented something called failure showcases.
It's brilliant. Rather than only celebrating the amazing time-saving things the AI can do, Microsoft intentionally holds regular sessions where teams get together and share instances where the AI produced incorrect, unhelpful, or completely ridiculous outputs.
They just air out the dirty laundry.
Yeah, they proactively put the errors on a pedestal.
Wait, but if you're a massive tech company trying to drive adoption, doesn't actively showing your team how stupid the tool can be risk them abandoning it entirely?
You would think it would cause a panic.
Right. How do you balance healthy skepticism with outright rejection?
It sounds counterintuitive, but psychologically it's brilliant. Because remember, the goal isn't maximum adoption, it's calibrated trust.
Ah, going back to the calibration.
Exactly. By actively showcasing the failures, you remove the machine's aura of infallibility.
You show that it's not magic.
Right. You're giving employees psychological permission to doubt the output. It re-engages the critical evaluation centers of their brain, preventing that blind overtrust from taking root in the first place.
Okay, so that solves the blind trust issue, but what about the resentment issue?
What do you mean?
Like, how do you get workers to actually use the tool in a sustainable way without them feeling like they're being forced to automate themselves out of a job? Unilever took a really interesting approach here.
Oh, they did. They achieved an adoption rate of over 75%.
Which is massive.
It's huge. But they did it without a single top-down mandate.
No forced adoption. So how did they do it?
Unilever utilized a concept researchers call procedural justice.
Procedural justice.
Okay. Instead of the C-suite or the IT department just dictating how the AI should be used, they created cross-functional AI councils.
Like committees.
Yeah, but they pulled in frontline marketing professionals, legal staff, brand managers, copywriters. They gave the actual workers a direct voice in determining which tasks were appropriate to automate and how to weave these tools into their daily workflows.
Meaning they didn't just drop a new software on people's desks and say, figure it out or fall behind.
Exactly.
They actually handed the workers the pen to write the rules.
And the psychological impact of that is profound. When people have a hand in building the governance, they feel a sense of ownership over the rollout.
They don't feel like automation is happening to them.
Right, they feel like they're directing it.
That makes total sense. Now let's talk about the skill degradation problem we discussed earlier, that fear of losing our internal GPS. Deloitte is tackling this head on, right?
They are, and they've completely moved away from teaching basic prompt engineering.
Why? I thought prompt engineering was like the skill of the future.
Well, Deloitte realized very quickly that teaching a consultant how to type a highly specific prompt is a short-term, fleeting skill.
Oh, because the models change so fast.
Exactly. The models update, and suddenly that perfect prompt is useless. So instead, they completely restructured their approach into role-specific, tiered training that focuses entirely on teaching human judgment and output evaluation.
How does that actually work in practice?
So an entry-level analyst might learn how to use AI for initial data gathering, but with heavy mandatory human oversight.
Okay.
But for senior consultants, the training flips. They are trained specifically on how to critically evaluate complex AI analysis. Yeah, they run exercises using case studies where the AI output actually contains subtle, dangerous flaws, and the participants have to find them.
Wow, it's like a scavenger hunt for AI mistakes.
Basically. They aren't training people to generate content. They're training the human brain to remain the final critical arbiter of quality.
It's literally a workout for the critical thinking muscle.
That's a great way to put it.
And for sheer structural governance, like taking the guesswork out of where the boundaries are, JP Morgan Chase took a much more rigid route.
Well, operating in a highly regulated financial industry means you really can't rely on gut feeling.
Sure, the stakes are way too high.
Right. So JP Morgan established an AI governance office that categorizes every single potential AI application into a strict 3-tier risk system.
Let's go through the tiers.
First, you have automated tasks. This is for routine, low-risk data processing that might only need a monthly spot check by a human.
Just let it run in the background.
Exactly. Second is assisted. This means a human is actively in the loop, and mandatory review of all AI outputs is required before it goes anywhere.
Okay, so the AI is just a co-pilot there. And the third tier is where they draw a hard line in the sand, right?
Yes. The third tier is prohibited.
Prohibited.
This covers any complex decisions requiring actual fiduciary judgment, deep client empathy, or high-stakes financial strategy. The AI is entirely locked out of that tier.
They're structurally defining what is uniquely human, and they're aggressively protecting it.
Exactly.
Finally, let's look at IBM, because they solved that disclosure fear we spent so much time on in Section 1.
The privacy panic.
Yeah, that creepy feeling of being spied on when you share sensitive information with a chatbot. How did IBM handle that?
IBM approached the relational vulnerability problem through pure privacy protective design. They knew employees wouldn't use the tool for deep problem solving if they felt surveilled. So instead of sending all employee queries to a massive, opaque central cloud server, they engineered the system to process as many queries as possible locally.
Like right on the employee's own laptop.
Right on their own device.
So keeping the data in the room, so to speak.
Exactly. And when a complex query does have to go to a central server, the system automatically strips away all identifying metadata.
Oh, that's smart.
Furthermore, they instituted a strict data retention cap of just 7 days.
7 days?
Yeah. Unless the user explicitly opts in to save a conversation, the system just forgets it entirely after a week.
And they also gave every employee a personal privacy dashboard, right?
They did.
So you can actually log in, see exactly what the AI knows about you, and just hit delete on any of it whenever you want.
Yep. And the psychological result of giving users that control is incredible.
I bet.
While the broader data showed disclosure willingness dropping sharply over time across the general workforce, internal surveys at IBM showed that employee trust and willingness to disclose remained completely stable.
Wow. They engineered the fear out of the system by just giving the autonomy back to the user.
Exactly. They built trust through transparency.
Okay, so what does this all mean for the listener?
Mm.
Because I have to challenge you on this.
Go for it.
Microsoft, Unilever, Deloitte, JP Morgan, IBM. These are massive, multi-billion-dollar global behemoths with endless resources and dedicated compliance teams.
They certainly are.
If you're listening to this deep dive right now and you're managing a nimble marketing team of 5 people or you run a boutique accounting firm, do you really need a massive governance council just to let your team use a chatbot?
It's the most important question we can ask, and the answer is no. You absolutely do not need a massive corporate bureaucracy.
Okay, good. That's a relief.
But you do need to scale the core psychological principles that these giants are using.
Because the psychology doesn't change.
Exactly. The size of your organization doesn't change the underlying human psychology of trust, calibration, and frankly, cognitive laziness.
So how does the listener apply these billion-dollar playbooks tomorrow morning?
You can distill it down to 3 highly scalable actions.
Let's hear them.
First, you need transparent boundaries, just like JP Morgan. Even a tiny team of 3 people needs a clear written list of which tasks the AI is allowed to handle and which tasks must absolutely be done by a human mind.
So write down your own 3 tiers.
Exactly. Second, involve your team in creating those rules, scaling Unilever's approach. Don't dictate the policy from the top down.
Right.
Sit down in your weekly meeting, ask your team where the friction is, and solve it together.
Give them the pen.
Give them the pen. And third, implement your own mini failure showcases like Microsoft.
Just laugh at the mistakes.
Basically, spend the first 5 minutes of your Friday wrap-up sharing the funniest, most glaring, or most subtle mistake the AI made that week. It normalizes skepticism, it keeps everyone grounded, and it keeps that critical thinking muscle engaged.
I absolutely love that. You don't need $1 million training budget to laugh at a chatbot hallucinating a fake statistic in a team meeting.
Not at all.
It just reminds everyone that the machine isn't magic. Which really brings us to the big takeaway here, looking at your individual daily workflow.
Right.
The goal of all this, whether you are a Fortune 500 CEO or a solo freelancer just trying to survive the week, isn't maximum AI adoption. It is appropriate, calibrated integration.
Sustainable AI use isn't about repeated, endless exposure to the tool. It's about realistic trust and continuous learning.
Which takes work.
It does. It's about building a community of practice, even if that community is just you and a few peers, where you are constantly sharing what works, what doesn't, and where the boundaries should be.
And to protect your own long-term career, there's this brilliant analogy used in the source material to describe how commercial airline pilots operate.
Oh, I love the pilot analogy.
It's so good. Modern planes are so sophisticated, they can basically fly themselves from takeoff to landing. But commercial pilots are required by aviation authorities to fly manually at certain times.
Right, specifically to keep their skills sharp.
Exactly. So if you're listening to this, I want you to look at your own job and identify your core capabilities.
The things that make you valuable.
Right. What are the specific tasks, the strategic decisions, the creative processes that actually make you uniquely valuable? What are the things you should absolutely refuse to delegate to an AI, purely so you can keep your professional muscles intact?
That is your ultimate safeguard against automation bias. You have to actively choose to do the hard work manually sometimes, just to prove to yourself that your internal GPS still works.
Because if you let the AI fly the plane every single day,
you will forget what the controls do the second there's an emergency.
Exactly. Which leaves us with one final, slightly provocative thought to ponder.
Okay, let's hear it.
We've talked a lot about how organizations are rushing to automate all the routine, mundane tasks, right?
The basic data entry, the simple summaries, generic emails.
Right. But if they actually succeed in automating all the easy stuff, human workers will be left entirely with the most complex, the most high stakes, the most ambiguous problem.
Everything left over.
Every single task that hits your desk would be the one the AI couldn't figure out.
Wow.
So are we psychologically prepared for a future where our jobs are played entirely on hard mode with absolutely no easy wins or routine tasks to give our brains a break during the day?
That is a very intense future to imagine.
Something to think about the next time you ask a chatbot to write a standard memo.